Jalen Brunson and Mark Cuban recently got a little heated in a discussion on the Roommates podcast, breaking down Brunson's decision to leave Dallas and sign with New York, and the family ties did come into play, so we're going to break all of it down. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris, and we're going to jump right into the video today. No ads. We're all good jumping right in because, look, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart on the Roommates podcast recently had Mavericks governor Mark Cuban on the pod. Obviously, Mark is famous for a litany of things, not just being the Mavs owner, but also being on Shark Tank, being sort of an online personality and cameoing in every single show known to man, pretty much. Honestly, he does a lot of cool things. So they had him, he's the most famous owner by a wide margin. They had him on the podcast also because his relationship with Brunson. People kind of thought that soured because of Mark Cuban's kind of poor relationship with the New York Knicks franchise as a whole. And that didn't start with Brunson, but we'll get into that. So when discussing just everything with Mark Cuban, along with Brunson's decision to leave Dallas for New York, this is what went down. Now, Mark Cuban said, "All's well that ends well. I'm happy for you. You're the king of New York, and I'm happy for us in regards to the Mavericks, as they did just come off an NBA Finals run behind arguably the best player in the NBA in Luka Doncic." And Brunson was like, yeah, no, of course, and also mentioned, only thing that I don't like was when Mark said when the parents got involved, things got messy. That was a little jab, to which Cuban said, wasn't really a jab. I didn't want to go there here on the podcast, he means. No reason for us to talk about any of that, basically, to anyone who wants to listen, but it wasn't a jab for real. And Brunson's like, I'm just saying, I just felt a certain way, to which Cuban said, I'm sorry, I apologize. It wasn't the intention, but it was hard to deal with a unique negotiation. Now, Brunson responded by saying, it's the same negotiation that happened that we went through with Isaiah, referring to Isaiah Hartenstein, who obviously left the Knicks pretty early on in free agency to join the Thunder, as Sam Presti did fly out to Oregon, where Hartenstein lives, to pitch to Hartenstein at his house, really before the Knicks even had a shot to do anything about it. But in Hartenstein's defense, he knew that the Knicks couldn't do anything about what the Thunder were offering him. He was getting basically double the money per year. Again, I have no animosity towards Hartenstein for leaving. I get why he did it, especially when he said that if it was a team that wasn't contending that offered him that money, he would have stayed in New York. Hartenstein, when you're looking at on a personal basis, if you're Isaiah Hartenstein and you're not from New York City, a lot of us watching this are New Yorkers, so it's tougher for us to leave the greatest city on the planet. But for Hartenstein, who's not a New Yorker, who'd only lived here for 2 years, was like, yeah, from Eugene, Oregon, like, I guess it's a little closer to home. It's still contending, and I've moved before between Denver and Houston and Cleveland and Los Angeles and New York. Like, I guess I'll go to OKC now. He's been kind of a journeyman who's just been good everywhere he's really played. Also, he's kind of an interesting thing. Like, him and Alec Burks keep switching teams despite the fact that they're such useful role players for any team that they get. But that's kind of completely different topic. But Brunson went on to say, like, how it was the same negotiation with Hartenstein, and Cuban said, it may well be. I'm happy for you. We still keep in touch. Definitely no hard feelings. And Brunson was like, yeah, but Brunson kind of looked a little dejected from it. I do think there is some animosity left over from the situation, and I think that's understandable. Now, Mark Cuban was rightfully upset with what happened. What happened essentially was the Knicks went out there and knew exactly what to do to bring Jalen Brunson to the team. The Knicks were tight with Brunson. They were tight with the Brunson family. Tom Thibodeau's tight with the Brunson family. Everything perfectly aligned for the Knicks to bring in Jalen Brunson. The only thing that no one expected was for Jalen Brunson to get this darn good at basketball. The only people who seemingly had any idea this might actually happen was Luka Doncic, who talked about it on JJ Redick's podcast a while ago and basically said, oh yeah, the games I was injured and the way he played, I knew this was coming after that. And even so, like, it's a little easier to predict after that, but Brunson and Luka are still very close friends. So even if Luka didn't believe it, he's not going to be like, oh, I didn't know. No, he's going to hype up his friend, which he should do. That's just being a good friend. Like, but we're in a situation now where Cuban was upset not only because he lost his point guard who was breaking out onto the scene, it's also that he lost him without being able to do much about it because Brunson knew exactly where he was going the moment free agency started. It's why it got announced 3 hours prior to free agency that once free agency began, it was heavily expected Brunson would sign a deal with the Knicks for 4 years for the amount that it was that I'm completely blanking on right now. So it's not like It's not like the Dallas Mavericks had much of a chance. The problem was they were in-house. They could have done stuff in the past, and Jalen Brunson tried to get it done. Now, Brunson mentioned on the All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson that he approached the Mavericks twice about a contract extension for 4 years, $55 million, effectively half of what he got paid from the New York Knicks. Both times, Dallas declined. It wasn't that they never got a chance. Brunson came to the Mavericks, said, I want to re-sign, I want to stay here. The Mavericks said, no, we don't want to give you that contract. We're going to hold out. Obviously a massive mistake in retrospect 2 years later, but even at the time, Brunson was having the best season of his career. There were already rumblings about him going to the Knicks. That did not start at the end, right when Brunson started playing well. The rumblings of Jalen Brunson becoming a Knick happened, I don't know, halfway through the season. Back then in the 2021-22 season, it was around halfway through when it was really becoming a thing that the Knicks were going to go for Jalen Brunson at all the stops, because Leon Rose knew that he was going to get Jalen Brunson, and you can only keep that so secret as good as the Knicks are at keeping things in-house. So Brunson obviously then signs with the Knicks. Things are all great here, and then the tampering thing comes down. Now, an official statement from the NBA is that they announced that the New York Knicks violated league rules governing the timing of the season's free agency discussions, and that the league has rescinded New York's own second-round pick in the 2025 NBA draft. This outcome reflected a finding following an investigation that the Knicks engaged in free agency discussions involving Jalen Brunson prior to the date when such discussions were permitted. Now, that's just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo to say we're taking away the Knicks' 2025 second-round pick because they signed Jalen Brunson. So essentially the Knicks traded a 2025 second-rounder to the NBA, not to Dallas, for Jalen Brunson, which is the greatest trade in history. And it's worth it because, look, 29 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 7 assists, full-blown superstar numbers throughout all of this. Anywhere you look, it's superstar numbers. Jalen Brunson is an NBA superstar. He's a top 10 player in the NBA. He is one of the most effective offensive players in the game, one of the best scorers in the game. I mean, 4 straight 40-point games. I guess technically 40 straight 4-point games if you're going over. Where four straight 40-point games where Jalen Brunson went out there in the NBA playoffs. And, the man, he's a phenomenal player. Obviously, Cuban's going to be upset. But this is not the first time Mark Cuban's had his time bashing the Knicks. Remember after the Porzingis trade when Mark Cuban went on to First Take and him and Max Kellerman effectively gloated at the trade that happened where the Knicks were robbed of Kristaps Porzingis by the Mavericks? Now look, yes, bad trade by the Knicks. Not a good idea. You guys easily could have gotten more for Porzingis had you not rushed it. But Porzingis' older brother Giannis was essentially running the ship and basically saying, yep, you're just going to go to Spain and play basketball. Like, Porzingis threatened to just leave the Knicks and go to Europe until his contract would be over so he wouldn't have to play for them anymore. Porzingis was being a complete diva. He's apologized for it in later years, basically saying, dude, I was 22 years old. Look, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. I wish things ended differently. I'm sorry it did. I still love New York. And I honestly forgive Porzingis. I understand. Look, sometimes you make mistakes. It happens. The Mavericks made a mistake. They could have re-signed Jalen Brunson, and they didn't. But Mark Cuban goes on First Take to gloat. Wow, that bounced back real poorly, because then now he was just whining to the media about how the Knicks robbed him of a player who was never supposed to be better than Kristaps Porzingis and is now on a completely different level. And this is not bashing Porzingis at all. He's a champion. He's a phenomenal defensive center. He's an awesome player. Shout out to Kristaps for being a great player. Jalen Brunson's a top 10 player in the NBA. Porzingis is what, top 40, top 50? Like something like that. Great player, but he's not the all-star, superstar unicorn that everyone did expect him to become. That never happened. Obviously, the Luka thing with Porzingis flamed out. But the Mavericks are doing okay. So it seems like Mark Cuban's kind of stopped with all the complaining about losing Brunson and all that. But this is not the first time Mark Cuban and the Knicks have been at odds. It's not the last time Mark Cuban and the Knicks will be at odds. This is something that will continue to happen. Clearly, Brunson and Cuban still have some animosity over it. Even if it's not completely aimed at each other, they're still very much upset about how that marriage ended. Cuban blames Brunson and his family for the way that things went down. Brunson blames Mark Cuban, or doesn't exactly blame him, I'd say, but more is like, well, at the end of the day, I tried to come back to you guys, and now you're whining about the fact that I didn't go back to your team after I tried to twice. You have no right to complain. And Mark Cuban's like, yes, I do, because after we wanted to re-sign you, even though we've declined you twice, we still wanted to re-sign you, and you didn't give us a chance. Now, you can pick which side you think is correct there. I think it's one of those situations where both sides are a little bit guilty, but at the end of the day, the Mavericks had 2 chances to re-sign Brunson for the bargain of the century and didn't do it. It's on them. Brunson is not to blame here for taking more money than he was ever offered from Dallas to go to a new team, be the face of the franchise, and pop off into an NBA superstar. I think Brunson made the right call, and I think it's very commendable how Dallas has bounced back in just 2 years, being an NBA Finals contender, having Kyrie and Luka, a phenomenal duo, though I don't think they'll win a championship together. I just don't think 2 offensive-based guards can be the best player on your championship team. But also, Luka is Luka. You never know. Guys, let me know what you think down below. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Couldn't throw an ad into this one. This video I knew was going to be long. But let me know. Have a great day. Go Knicks.